Our guest on Personally Speaking this week is a wonderful actor, singer, and writer. His name is Claybourne Elder. You've seen him on the Broadway stage. You've seen him on TV in the Gilded Age. And he's also going to talk to us about what it means to be a parent in today's society. Stay with us for our interview with Claybourne Elder. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Msgr Jim Lisante. An actor and singer, Claybourne Elder, joins me now. Claybourne is a Grammy, Screen Actors Guild Award, and Drama Desk nominee. He is known for his performances on Broadway in Bonnie and Clyde, Sunday in the Park with George, and Company. Claybourne currently plays John Adams on HBO's hit series The Gilded Age, and presently stars in an off-Broadway production of Little Shop of Horrors. He recently released his debut album entitled If the Stars Were Mine. Claybourne's here with us today to talk about his life, his career, his family, the values that mean the most to him. Joining me now, so pleased to welcome to Personally Speaking, Clay Elder. Before we get to our interview, let's listen to Claybourne singing If the Stars Were Mine.
If the stars were mine, I'd give them all to you. I'd pluck them down right from the sky and leave it only blue. I would never let the sun forget to shine upon your face, so when others would have rain clouds, you'd have only sunny days. If the stars were mine, I'd tell you what I'd do. I'd put those stars right in a jar and give them all to you.
Clay, thank you so much for coming on Personally Speaking, and a personal word of thanks for people my age and older who love the idea of a real CD. Thank you for having this produced not just online or streaming, but I love DVDs and I love CDs. Thank you so much for putting your album out this way.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having it. I appreciate you having it.
No, I love the album. We'll talk about individual songs and your interpretations, but let's go back a little bit. One thing that comes through in every interview you do, as well as in the songs, is this man loves the concept of family, loves the idea of having a spouse and a child. But I got to ask you then, you know better than most that anyone who goes into the creative arts, talk about an indefinite career where you're never quite sure what's coming next. Why would you at the same time want a career in the arts, but also want to have the stability and the beauty of family life?
That's a great question. You know, it is a big challenge to navigate at times, having those two things. I think that, you know, as a kid, I think that a lot of people told me that being an artist, being an actor, having that kind of unstable life meant that I wouldn't be able to have those things. Yeah. And I think that for a long time, I wasn't sure that it was possible. And I'm very thankful that I came to New York and saw lots of other families and lots of other people also having that sort of life while continuing to be artists. And so I had a lot of really incredible examples ahead of me. Yeah. But I knew that it was something both things were things that I really wanted to have in my life. And I think that, like many things, you just kind of have to have a sense that it's going to work out. Yeah. If you want to do it, and if you're willing to work hard enough and try hard enough, you'll be able to make it work. Yeah. And you just have to believe that that's what's going to happen. To do it, you know.
Claybourne Elder is our guest. We hope our listeners and watchers will get his album, which we're going to talk about. But I wanted to ask you, too, you are a working actor, thank God. And for people who see The Gilded Age and on Broadway, off-Broadway, there's Clay. But I ask that because there's no actor that we've ever had on in the past 30 years who doesn't say there are dry times when the work doesn't come. When a part seems perfect to you, but doesn't happen, How do you as a person individually handle disappointment, rejection? What do you do with it?
Oftentimes when I teach young people and talk to them about what it's like to have a long-term career in the arts,
Yeah.
I say, and really this concept, because for young people, they're very concerned about making it, this idea that they're going to make it. No, they will arrive at having a career and, but I think that the biggest surprise to a lot of those young people who I know who moved to New York or who moved to LA or wherever to pursue a life in the arts, you learn very quickly that buoyancy is actually the most important skill to have. Because the people who I see who leave most often are the people that can't handle the rejection of it all, and they feel rejected. And I don't like using that term associated with it. Like people will say like, you got rejected from an audition, you got rejected from and it's not really that. You just weren't right. It wasn't for you. And that's fine. But, having like making it, as they call it, is really the cross section of talent, which you come to, let's say in my business, which is mostly theater in New York City.
Right.
Everyone is talented. There are incredible, talented people everywhere. And I know lots of them that never got a job. And they're so talented.
Yeah.
But it's a cross-section of talent and luck to really get that first job. But then perseverance is kind of the third part of that. That those are the three things you have to make a career, if you're going to do it. And if you don't want to do it, that's also great. But, by all means, lots of people I know who come and spend 5 or 10 years being an actor. Some of them have great success on Broadway, but just realize that it's not the perseverance part is something they don't get,
Yes.
And then they go off and do other really valuable, wonderful things with their lives. But if it is something you want to do long term, that's something you need to know that you're going to have to keep bouncing back. So I call it buoyancy.
Yeah, I like that. I like buoyancy and kind of eliminating rejection from the whole conversation. For those that don't know, Claybourne Elder is, believe it or not, the youngest of 8 children. And now that you're a parent and have been for a while, I need to ask you, when you look back on your parents, who, let's face it, in this day and age, there are very few families that are that large. But when you look back on your parents and how they raised you, let's go positive here and talk about what did you learn from them that was valuable that you might use with your own child?
Geez, everything. I had really great parents. I was very lucky. I had very supportive parents and very, I think that at any turn they could have said to me, you're choosing an unreasonable job.
Yeah.
Or unreasonable life path. But they didn't. They were very supportive. And, they didn't have an exceptional amount of money to float me, So I worked very hard. But, my dad said to me once, always do your best and you'll always have a job. And it's true, whether that is working at I worked at a children's bookstore when I first moved to New York. I was a bartender for one day. I was all these, all of these different things. I always remember him saying that. And, my dad really believed in me and believed that I could do anything I wanted to do. Yeah. And I think that really, rather than the pressure of you must do something great, really relieved me of that pressure to, and I think that it's been a very beneficial thing to feel like I'm doing something I want to do, not something I have to do.
Yeah. We're here with Claybourne Elder, and we're talking about many things, but among them we're going to talk about the album is If the Stars Were Mine. Let's go back to another dimension of the stars, which is the heavens. As a Catholic priest, I have lived long enough to see our church be sometimes incredibly intolerant toward people who are gay. And there was a time when one of our teachings was that the homosexual person is intrinsically disordered. And along came Pope Francis, who said, no, we're not going to judge people. We're going to accept and love people, all people, because everyone's made in the image and likeness of God. And Pope Leo, it sounds to me like he's following the same path of tolerance, acceptance, embrace. I mention all that because your background is in the Mormon faith, and it hurt you. It hurt you, as I'm sure many gay Catholics would say they've been hurt by the church. I just ask you, though, one of the things, when I'm hearing confession, I like to say to people who have been hurt is try to find a path to forgiveness. I know because I've heard other interviews with you that you're very, very direct about your feelings, but I wanted to ask you, have you found it in your heart the ability to forgive the Mormon church for the way in which it was not accepting of your life?
I think that this is another benefit of my parents. It was not easy for them when I came out. It was hard, but they never didn't want to talk about it or didn't want to process it or didn't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Which I think was really key.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of just saying like, well, you can do that, but don't talk about it. And I don't want you to bring a boyfriend or a husband home ever. And I don't want to, instead they stayed in the room with me and were like, well, I want to understand this. Let's talk about it. And so I feel very lucky for that experience because I know that again, I could have very easily had parents that were not that accepting or not that willing to do the work to see eye to eye on something, and I think that the most challenging thing for me, though, for as a Mormon kid growing up, is when I was a student at BYU, the Mormon university,
right,
and I got kicked out of school for being gay.
Wow.
And it was the first time that like my religion suddenly affected the outcome of the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That they could do something that really, really challenged my future. It had been all I ever wanted to do. It was go there and study, and to be going there 1 week and then next week not be going, and be like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Kind of in a, it felt like being cast out.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part for me to accept and to forgive. And so much has changed about that place now, and how they like their level of acceptance is extremely different and much higher than it was when I was a student there.
Yeah.
And that took me a really long time, but none of the people that did it were trying to do something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to do what they thought was right.
Yeah.
And, luckily I ended up having an okay life,
Yes.
and it worked out and everything was okay. So it may be easier for me to say, yes, I could forgive them, because I have, than somebody whose life it might have really messed up, or somebody who felt like they had something taken away from them that they never got back. So both in my parents and in my life, professional life, I feel like I was very lucky.
You're a very understanding and forgiving man, to be sure. I wanted to ask you, too, because a big part of the job that I do as a priest every weekend is to bring couples together and bless them. And I mention that to you because I'm amazed by anybody making a lifetime commitment to another person. I think marriage is one of the greatest leaps of faith in the world, because all you know is the past, and today you don't know what the future will hold. What was it about Eric that made you say, I could build a life with this guy?
I don't want to say you just know, because that seems silly. But I think that, Eric and I, when we first started dating, we lived in two different cities. He was living in Kansas City and I was living in New York. And I think that because of that, we had to decide very quickly if we were serious about doing it, because it wasn't easy. We were on airplanes, flying back and forth, on the phone a lot, figuring out how to make and build something together over a distance. And I think, I wouldn't recommend that to people. Like, I wouldn't recommend that being the way you should find a partner. But for me and for us, it did make it so we had to get serious about the future of the relationship quickly. And think about it and talk about it. It really put not pressure on it exactly, but it did put a level of seriousness about, actual commitment to the thing. At question right away. And I think that actually was really beneficial to us. And Eric, we are very different people and complement each other very well. And I think that's one thing for me that, sometimes you think you want to find someone who's the same, or I think people think that.
Right.
But for me, finding someone who was very different and loved the things about me that were different, and that I loved the things about him that were different, was really important.
Claybourne Elder is our guest, and we're talking about If the Stars Were Mine, and that's what I want to focus on now. That song, beautiful song, but it so much addresses the values and the things you want to give to Bo, the son that you love. And I mention it because I was thinking to myself, now, again, I'm not a parent, but I'm an uncle. And I remember being in the room when my nephew was born. I had been the coach when my sister had the baby. And I remember holding the child on that first day and saying, oh my God, somebody's got to watch over, protect, raise, nurture this kid for the next 18 to 21 years. And I just wonder where people find the unconditional love to love that fully. Did you know you could love that fully? Have you been able to find that love? And is there anything that Bo could ever do that would make you stop loving him?
Before I became a parent, a lot of parents who knew that I was about to become one said to me, your whole life is about to change.
Yeah.
And I would say, why or how? And they'd be like, I can't tell you, it just is. I was always like, what does that mean? Why are you telling me that? What are you talking about? And I think that it's true of the birth of a nephew or a niece, or any new baby that you're like, even a best friend that you're very close with, anybody in the circle of that family, your life changes. And it's true that there's a love that I didn't understand before having a child and being close to a child and becoming a father. And, I say often that I will never recover from the sadness of Bo growing up. I'll never be the same.
Right.
It's the saddest thing, because you're always mourning the child they were, like the little 2-year-old version of him, the 4-year-old version of him, because he grows and he changes. He's not a fixed thing, Yeah. And it's the best and the worst. I love it so much, and it's so hard. But also there's this, like, I often feel like I can't love him more, but as he grows up, I find that I love him more and more and more. And my relationship changes with him and develops with him. And our love grows, becomes a deeper thing when, the older he gets and the more we talk, on a friend level, just and that's been a new thing lately, that he's so grown up in his thoughts.
That wonderful actress, Victoria Clark, when she had been on our program, she has a son, Tommy, and I said, when he steps out of your apartment and goes out, I guess as a teenager, Do you worry about him? She said, I never stop worrying about him. Do you understand that fear factor? That, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
People ask me when Bo, like how old he's going to be when he rides the subway alone. And I always say 30.
Yeah, slightly protective. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That's great, though. And I want to talk about one more song that meant the most to me. By the way, you have on there, which I love it, Hey Kid, James Snyder, who actually played that role on Broadway, was a guest on our program, and he talked about how much meaning it had for him. But How Glory Goes. You know, I had this week a wonderful guy in my parish pass away, and he's a grandpa. And his son said to me, the hardest part is not only losing my dad, he said, but my sons, his grandsons, they want to understand where Grandpa has gone, and I have to explain what I believe about heaven and life beyond this life and values that last and all the rest of it. Have you figured out, how do you teach values that matter to Bo?
You know, I think the biggest way that we talk about Eric and I as parents is through example. You know, that he is always watching us and always taking in how we interact with the world and with people. And it becomes, you know, doing good deeds is always important.
Yes.
But but doing them in front of him, explaining to him why we do something for somebody else, I think is the best way to do that, you know, for us. And I like to think he's becoming a good little kid. The other day we went to a store and we bought a cookie, and they gave us this cookie, but there was also a broken cookie, and they just gave it to us as extra.
Right.
And Bo was like, we need to go pay for that. I was like, no, he told me he just put it in the bag for free because he was like, no, I really think we should go pay them something for it. And I was like, I'll go. Do you want me to go ask?
Can we have a society of Bows that would want to do that? You know, isn't that great?
It was very sweet.
I promise my last question for you, and Clay, I'm so grateful to you for this interview. But 30 years ago, when I first started doing this, the first guest I had was the film director, Frank Capra. And I love all his movies, but especially It's a Wonderful Life. I mention that because in the beginning, there is that great scene between St. Joseph and St. Peter talking about George Bailey, and the question that the guardian angel asks is he sick? And the answer is no, worse than that. He's discouraged. In this very divided world of ours, where people are sometimes hopeless about us ever bringing the world together, wars between other nations, faiths at war with each other, families at war with each other, for you, Clay, are you a person of hope, and how do you keep hope alive? How do you avoid discouragement?
It's tricky. You know, I'm not going to say it's as easy as just like thinking positive thoughts, or, you know, it is not easy. And I think that the easiest thing to do is go stick your head in the sand and just try to live your life, you know, and ignore it all. And I don't think that's the answer
right.
either. I think that, you know, like, I think that unfortunately we have to educate ourselves, and you have to read the news. You have to know what's going on. But also you have to find ways to stay positive. You have to find ways to stay hopeful, you know, and doing those two things is very difficult, because sometimes when you read the news, it is just impossibly hard not to feel so much, you know? And like, I don't know that I have an answer, except that the answer is to me that there isn't really a way. There's not a perfect way to do it. Yeah. You just have to choose that you're going to be. And you're going to choose that you're going to make sure that you know what's going on, and that you do everything you can to support the causes you believe in. Yeah. But that also there are going to be things that don't work out, and there are going to be wars, and there are going to be other terrible things that you should know about, and you should try and choose to remain hopeful, you know?
Yeah. I ask you that because you probably know you come across so positively, understanding, compassionate, and even, you know, earlier in my question about forgiving people who have been biased or bigoted in the past, and And your explanation was that may have been where they're coming from at that point, but we have to understand where people are coming from and overlooking a lot, trying to forgive. I mean, there's a mercy in your heart that comes across, and I believe that's at the heart of hope. I don't want our listeners and viewers to miss an opportunity. So I know they see you on TV and they see you on the Broadway stage, but specifically for our interview today, If the Stars Were Mine, the album, how do folks who, and I want to recommend that people do listen to it, because you're not only a wonderful singer, but you also have this great interpretive abilities. And I think people should listen to this and get this album. How do they get it?
Thanks. You can go to claybourneelder.com or find me on Instagram, Claybourne Elder, which will lead you to that website. And there you can buy copies of it. And I will say that when you buy the album, it comes with liner notes on all the songs. And it's a really good companion to know what I mean when I sing that song. I think it's a very...
No, those explanations you offer are great. I wish every album had that, because sometimes I'm saying, I wonder why they sang that. And you give us the background and a better understanding. Claybourne Elder has been our guest on Personally Speaking. I'm so grateful to you for the interview and for the man that you are and the talent you have, obviously, that comes from above, I believe, and from those great parents of yours who formed and shaped you. But I'm so glad that they had 8 kids and that you were the last, but probably the best of the whole bunch, I'm going to guess, right? Claybourne, thank you for being with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for being with us on Personally Speaking. You may have listened to it on the Catholic channel, Sirius XM. You can also watch our program on YouTube, searching under Personally Speaking with Msgr Jim Lisante. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe. Personally Speaking is also on catholictv.org out of the Archdiocese of Boston. And we're also on Facebook at Personally Speaking with Msgr Jim Lisante, and on Instagram at Personally Speaking Podcast. Please share and let others know about Personally Speaking. I've been privileged to serve as host and executive producer of Personally Speaking. Our producer is Lisa Jandovitz. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.